People's Reservist, a film by Nikolay Feldman. Part 1. General Information, October 2014. Yuri Zakharchuk, Instructor. Absolute not readiness of the detachments of our army, of National Guard, to conducting any real battle operations. About 60% deaths can be avoided on the battlefront if you provide aid timely. The task of People's Reservist is to prepare people to the war action. People's Reservist. We got a big desire to increase the level of preparedness, to work on the preparation of our people, to make sure we don't suffer big losses because of lack of it. And in 2 days, intensive, or 10 2-hour-long classes, he cannot become a full-fledged fighter, but he can learn some basics. We're trying to make leaders from them who will organize, self-organize, and show others how and what to do, but I don't want to be their leader. There are some people who went to the front. There are servicemen of the Ukrainian military. There are people who, after our course, signed up as volunteers or who follow with volunteers and provide additional aid to the warfighters. There are different pathways. After training for the whole program that we're giving here, he definitely would know more than an average fighter of the Ukrainian army. Less than a special forces fighter, but definitely more than the usual recruit. The level of training in the Ukrainian military is rather low. They're using old methods that were designed for the army that is not conducting active warfare from the times of the transition from USSR times, when we still were essentially expecting a war between USSR and NATO. People need to feel that it's not somewhere. They need to understand that they are in the focal point. Because otherwise they just hide in a sort of psychological house. It's somewhere out there on TV. It's not here. And show it away in the same category as people suffering hunger somewhere in Zimbabwe. I have my crops to tender, I have my work, I don't care about all that. That's the usual thinking. What do you think? Did Ukrainian society learn this lesson? Did they have enough trials? I think if we multiply everything by 7 or 10 times, then maybe they will learn it. That's when the breaking point will happen. We could measure it looking back at Maidan. Some people were suffering cold, some people were afraid, some people were beaten up, but nobody really cared. But only when the deaths rose over 100 a day, that's when the society changed. Same thing, it will be growing until the point of some big tragedy, and then it will influence the society one way or another. And then they'll rethink their position about it. So in your view, that tragedy, when do you think it can happen? I'm not a prognosticator. It's hard for me to see when it will happen, but I'm going to say that if people did not learn it from 1,500 dead in the previous conflict, probably 5,000 will not teach them either. So what's the number? Maybe 10,000 or above it. Then something will start changing. Now we'll learn how to apply tourniquet. Puncture. You can puncture almost anything. You need to understand what's happening and not agree with that and radicalize your demand. Who thinks that we're doing here nothing? Come here. Okay, that's good. Part 2, the basics of medicine. Yulia Payevska, instructor, president of Mutakuka Ukraine Aikido. My task is to train you to survive yourself. My task is to train you to help your comrade and to help many of your friends, as many as you can. I'm doing my best to at least make them aware of what's going on, because those people who were never curious in war medicine, it is very different from the civil medicine. They usually get lost in a fight. So that you would understand, if the armpit is wounded, the closer the wound is to the body, the faster you bleed out. So if you're wounded in the armpit, you'll probably be depleted in about a minute. By the way, how do you think? Do you think you can bleed out from capillary wound? No? Oh yeah, you can. Depends how the wound goes. Do you know what the guys suffer most from at the battlefront? About 90%, 85% for sure, are shrapnel wounds. So if there is an explosion, you do not turn your butt to the epicenter and run fast. It won't help you. You need to lie down, cover your head with your hands, and then maybe it'll help you. And usually it does. This is how you put tourniquets on the limbs, on the groin artery, neck artery. Stopping the blood is actually an art. It's a very peculiar art. You can make a tourniquet from anything that is long enough. That's at least a yard or meter long, 70 centimeters. Problem is that you usually put tourniquet under fire, closer to the body, as close as you can. So pick either the armpit or the groin area and let's train. And let's come to an agreement. You don't use your thumb to measure your heartbeat, because your thumb has its own pulse. And you can actually use your thumb to find pulse on that tree over there. So before you wrap it, you pull it, then you turn it around and wrap around. And that's it. The blood basically has stopped pouring at this point. This is how you change the clip. People don't think about it. And the same thing has to be with tourniquet automatically. So first you stretch it and then wrap it. With the first motion, you feel it, right? I stop the blood. And then I'm just increasing the effect by continuous increasing the pressure. All right, 1 for every 2. We don't have too many of those tourniquets, so 2 of you take 1. It's difficult to put equal pressure. All right, let's test. Good. Yeah, no pulse. You passed. One can see. And then you do this, and you leave space. Then you take knife or clip or anything, and you start turning it. Feel it? That's how you do it. You fix this part so it doesn't move, so it doesn't roll back. And that's why I needed that tail left. I think that situation will be rocking both ways for a long time. I'm observing the pendulum since the beginning of this war. It seems like decision is being made, and then it's rolled back, and then again and again. I think it may continue for long, period. I doubt it will be done by spring. It would be fantastic, but I doubt. The worst prognosis is to next autumn. Part 3. field tactics. Some people fall back. Just tighten your abdomen muscles, and that's the necessary angle that you need for shooting. Don't look for these angles. When you start looking for them artificially, you'll figure something wrong. Thighs. Almost every other is putting them this way. Who of you is walking like this in a city? Haven't seen any of you, right? You guys walking normally. So the way we walk normally, thighs forward, the same way we're standing and walking here. And then you'll have the right distance between your feet and the right angle. God already made you good. You cannot make yourself better. So just use your limbs. This is a lesson that needs to be learned by a society at large. It is paying with blood for its laziness, for its unwillingness to fight for, and it will continue paying until it starts to learn. So you got the smile because your butt clenched and you don't have enough skin on your face. If that is going on, your hand and the arm needs to bend exactly with that flow of that motion. With the other hand, you hold the rifle at the handguard up front and hold it tight. It's holding it tight, but it's slightly pulling it different way. And you can also use magazine as additional control point. And see, the rifle is laying on my hands rather tight. You can also use the butt, and then you hold it really firm. They have to be patriots 100% in all the structures. Otherwise, why did we start all that? Why did we do Maidan, all the deaths, that heavenly 100, and now heavenly battalions after this wave of conflict? I'm just trying to do the best I can. The most common mistake, even if you take the right position, they first rise and then they start walking. Because while you're sitting, they're already aiming at us. While you're getting up, they already get a better aim at the first step, they shoot you. That's why, if you are going to get up from this position forward, use your back leg to push you, and that's how you go. Just push you forward. Then some of our heroes just fall like this. They hit themselves, they hit their rifle. It's not exactly good because 10 falls like this and you're not walking anywhere. And from this position, you slowly roll forward like this, like a snake. We love our land and you hug it with your chest. You don't crawl on your elbows. If you're crawling only after you're completely flat on the ground. You don't let your head up. You don't crawl on your elbows. Do not forget to check the neighbor. When they call Alexey Arestovich a provocateur, are you upset or not? I am a provocateur. My method is provocative psychotherapy on the scale of the whole country. That's how you hold the rifle. From here, you can start working immediately, in any position, whatever rifle you have. You can work like this, you can work like this. There's no difference. Bang, bang, you roll over, and you start working on the left, on the right, wherever you need to. Part 4, all-around defense or perimeter defense. We will talk about the main principles of motion and the terrain, the basics of formation on the battlefront. We are working with two categories of people. First, these are people who are planning or want to join the fight when it comes to it and want to make sure they are prepared. And the second group are the servicemen, active servicemen of the Ukrainian military. There is a rule of right hand that looks like this. Get up, come here with the tire. So that's how he is laying now. You do not take position like this. Why? Because we've hidden behind an obstacle. Of course, tire is not exactly an obstacle for the bullet, but even though we see the battle up front, we are vulnerable on the left, on the right, and in the center. So lie down as you did initially. First of all, you need to be fully hidden, or as much as you can, behind the obstacle. Ideally on the right, and you also should probably have something covering you on the right side. Why don't you stick your rifle forward? Because when you stick it out forward, you increase the probability of being hit, and you drastically increase the probability of being discovered quickly. How can they discover you? They can find you by the dust, and they can also see you by the flame. Especially the flame and the fire will be seen at night, and dust will be seen during the daytime. Wherever you're laying on the ground, you'll still be raising some dust. What's the perspective of People's Reservist? Do you think it will become a full-blooded army at some point? It is not designed to become an army. The task of People Reservist is to prepare a trained infantry, a trained warfighter. We do not organize them in detachments, and people want to be prepared. Some people already come from regional detachments. They organize from local groups, territorial defense, and the like, and they come as groups to get the training. Normally, given that most people are right-handed, there is a tradition of circling the battlefront through the right side, but in reality we always look at the terrain, at the battle position, at the formation of the enemy, how and what are they using to shoot. So how can you take a circle defense when there are three of you? It's easier when three, it's more difficult when two. If one of you is wounded, one is covering, another is taking the wounded out. When we're working with the actual servicemen of Ukrainian army on medical training, we had about 2,500 people already trained here. Tactical, a bit less, but quite a few. On the fire training, about 1,500 people already completed our exercise, seminars, and lectures. Fire, go. Bam, 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 bam. So you feel that, for sure, you are leading people, and you're always in the line of fire. Or do they move the fire different places? Several factors here. Untrained person cannot find a target quickly, and you need to find a target, and you need to lead the target. Do not distract to other things. Second, you get the feeling of discomfort because you're laying here and you understand that somebody is encircling you on the right and you have to do something. Whom do you shoot first? Shoot on the right, the left will come closer. Shoot on the left, the right will come closer. Plus, center is still suppressing you with fire. The task of the one in front of you is not to shoot you, but to suppress you. So after we lost numbers of people under reactive artillery, we started digging trenches. We were hit with mortars several times, so we started putting the watch out. Unfortunately, people learn from mistakes, on tragedies usually. Circle defense principle is rather basic. You have the head, the rear, and the side protections. Regardless if you're part of a platoon, a company, or a bigger detachment, it doesn't matter. If you are resting for an hour, if you are resting for the night, if you've taken position to stay here for a week and to have and hold this position, you always have to have a principle of the circle defense. Your motion is usually guided by the clock, right? 12 ahead, 3 to the right, 6 in the back. If the command is danger at 12, everybody fall, but you do not lose the sectors of your review. The left phalanx is looking to the left, the right flank is looking to the right, the rear is looking at the rear. So if you're here and you're looking at this direction, you're looking at 11 and 1. You guys cover your sector and you're covering that side. What happens up in the front is not of your concern. You're watching the back. Part 5, Close Combat. I'm responsible with my reputation for everything that I train. Okay, so the Human falls where his head leans to. He can tighten the muscles of his neck, the muscles of the back as much as he wants to, but if the head is leaning back, he'll fall back. If the height is about your, then it's your middle finger that works. You put the hands out front, slightly bend the finger, and you're working only for the eyes. You're going for the eyes. Doesn't matter if he was wearing glasses or anything. Here's your motion. That is provided or supported by the number of tragedy or deaths in the society. It doesn't need to be death per se, but it can be just general worsening of condition. Something needs to be notable that people would start doing. Once everybody feels it en masse, then we'll see some big changes. Until then, there won't be much change. And there won't be principal changes, nothing will change. The muscles that were protecting neck, they're turned off. And they probably will be turned off for another 30 seconds, and that's your motion. The muscles are turned off and you make this motion fast. The pressure increases, usually, until the person learns, until there is a change in the conscience that they need to include new factors in their life, in the way they deal with life, with family, with kids, with everything happening around them. If you try to cut like this, nothing will happen. You cannot do it fast, but you can puncture. You can puncture almost everything except for bulletproof vest, and then you have other targets for that. If in a fight you manage to stick a knife and he is still attacking you, then there may be somebody behind you. Don't start taking it out and playing a sewing machine here. It will not give you anything. If the knife is already in, you start turning it. Going from your volunteer experience, including your instructor experience, you're communicating with warfighters and regular army in volunteer corps. How prepared were they at the beginning of the conflict? It was a horror at the beginning. It was horrible. Now, due to the efforts of my colleagues and many organizations that are also buying components for the medical kits, and not just the medical kits, there are a lot of other things. It's difficult to provide everything for the army that they never had. Now the situation is getting better, and it's not that many cases that really raise my eyebrow. And the guys are calling me sometimes and saying, hey, we had an accident and we did what you trained us, and thank you so much. You actually helped, so I'm happy. All right, so I do want to cut above the knee in a crisscross fashion. I cannot reach it from here, no chance. I need to come closer, which is not good, or bend, which is also not good position. I would prefer something else. Those who still remember some geometry, right angle triangle. This is one edge, second edge, third edge. Side, side, hypotenuse. Hypotenuse is usually longer than any of the sides. We lower your body down to meet two edges of the triangle together without getting closer to him. So he, your opponent, gets a more difficult situation now. And that's where you slash. What will be the end result? Yeah, I think we need to provoke society to wake up and to start figuring it out. He didn't have time to hit you. I'm not even doing anything, right? That's the idea. Part 6 of People Reservist series, a year later, 2015. July 2015. Mechanized Brigade of Ukrainian military near Artyomovsk. It would be good to extend these trainings for a longer time, so we have better training. Is it better than the training that military gave you? Oh, what training? There was no training. There was just mobilization, and then they send you to your detachment. That's it. But you're an officer, right? You had some training before? I had a ROTC. All right. If, for example, they scared you over there, but over here is the real attack coming from, so what do? You turn your battle order, then you become the head watch, then you become what? A maneuver subgroup, regardless that you have machine gun. You becoming the core, and you are the back. And regardless where the enemy comes from, you just reassign your functions. Those guys whom we are training, who were recruited, they are now dying for this country. Without our training, they die ill-prepared, forgotten by the government, abandoned by their leadership. But they are changing the situation on the front where they are standing, and they are the salt of the earth. They are what hold our society together, because all that pyramid that is sitting ends in Kiev now is holding on these guys, on these fortified areas. A year ago. The base of People Reservist. The program was launched in May to prepare as many people as we could process to conduct battle operations, to work under fire. There are several factors affecting the process: aggression from Russia, a demand from society. That was the second factor. We had people who know how to train, and absolute not readiness of many detachments of our army and National Guard to conducting any real warfare. Our society did not learn when they got 1,500 dead. I don't think 5,000 will teach them. July 2015. The cap cannot be the main head attire for the military in the field uniform. Why? Because you need a Panama type hat. Because you need to cover neck from ticks, head from sun, water, etc. We're going to Mariupol, then to Artyomovsk, and we'll be meeting there with our soldiers in volunteer corps and different detachments who have a lot of business. We also want to cheer them up before the battle actions will intensify soon. I was here when the fight was going on. Donbass Battalion Base. Battle order is organized to allow you the most effective use, the strongest firepower that you have. Machine gun in this case is just making noise. Military intel needs to be conducted by all detachments, even logistics, that are in the war zone. because you need to do that in your own interest. There are also intel detachments that are conducting intel work in the interests of superior commander, and there is a difference. Right, I think this man is great here. He knows a lot, he'd been to different fights, has a lot of experience, and what's the most important, he has a special feature. He is a teacher, he's a coach. He can explain it to you, he can dissect it and explain with a very simple language to anybody. So see that sector of fire? I have the main one and the secondary one, and I'm not looking anywhere besides that in a normal working detachment. And if I have no targets, but my neighbor has, and he is already earning the order of the hero of Ukraine there, and I do want to shoot something there, I don't do it. When your battle order is stable, that allows you to maneuver. Because you up front, you already see the enemy and you're engaged. The ones in the back, they still don't know where the enemy is. Army is financed by whatever is left and supplied by the remnants of whatever is available and is managed by the same principle. And that war, that's a war of Ukrainian society versus Russian government, and its own as well. Right sector, base Duk. Right sector. I don't even know how to characterize the way the government treats its people who basically took the first hit upon them. And not just the first one, right? A lot of hits. You guys are still here. Yeah. People are really respective of us. They appreciate our work. They're saying we're fighting with vigor. Duk base, Central Command, right sector. Remember, occupant, if you are in Ukraine and see the right sector, run while you still can. Putin is a dick. So you have to spread along the front to not be a battle target for your enemy. Faster, faster, guys, you'll get killed. I think the last three who fell on the ground need to be reprimanded. So after conducting the training, what can you say? What do you feel? What do you get a feedback from them? So these people are the ones who are fighting daily. And then some dude comes from the capital, whom some people have seen on TV, and starts teaching them something. So I guess when everybody comes from those 40 men whom you trained, come over, they take your number, they ask for an autograph and share their experiences, and are very open and friendly. I think at least they appreciated the training that I provided. But getting at the questions that they ask, it looks like they also started to develop their skills better. So from the words of instructors, this is exactly what we'll need here, right? Run, run, faster, guys. Too long. Headquarters of Separate Mechanized Brigade of Ukraine military. If I can, I will organize it at the place where you take food. Who's the commander here? Yeah, I will be working with him. All right, follow me. Where we are now, and what's the goal of our today's visit? We are at the military location of that mechanized brigade, and the goal is to conduct military training exercise with commanders of platoons, companies, sergeants and lieutenants. A lot of them are mobilized and they have never been cadre military. They never had military proper education and they don't quite understand what they have to do. And yet, daily they have to engage the enemy. The cadre that we have here, they're good. But the mobilized ones are horribly prepared, ill-prepared. Many of them just had a brief ROTC course. So today I had a commander of a platoon, for example, a sergeant. He was trained at the ROTC as the air defense officer, and that was a long time ago, and it's absolutely inappropriate to what he's doing now. That training is very important for platoon commanders, for company commanders, because it definitely gives us the guidance how to work with personnel and what to do during the fight. Unload. Okay. Train your subordinates so they would never, ever get distracted and shoot in the wrong sector. Those people who return to the army, even after they served some years ago, it's very important to get that refreshing course. And thankfully to people like Alexei, who come visit us here, who train us and transfer their valuable experience to us. This is a great deal. If you leave these people without that preparation in their current condition, what will it lead to? Probably demoralization and a much larger number of deaths. Yeah, even contractors, those who are psychologically prepared to fight against the aggressor, it's still important to know what you're doing. So the results, you can see them? Absolutely. So even after yesterday exercise, I'm already training my people at the positions today. And this is super valuable. I think it's a great plus for everybody who is mobilized, who is in the army today. Right, and when you're here, 15 people over there are laughing at you and waiting till you get shot. So, for example, the border guard is now a commander of a company. The pilot of Su-24 is a commander of motorized battalion. They're military people, but they're not exactly familiar with current task, with what they're tasked to do. No, I did not have that equipment. Right, you know basics, you know your border guard, you know your field, what to do there, you know where the documents are coming, and here it's all different. For me, it's absolutely new. Everything here is new. It's a different assignment. I think we worked successfully. I think it was a good trip. Understandable, there are a lot more people who need to get that, but the result is good. What do we gauge to be a good result? You see that people preparedness to fight increases. There are two archetypes that dominate us. One is the Kuchma style, also Stalin's and ex-USSR style. Strong center and oligarchs around it, and power ministries for sale, and they trade different preferences between each other and creating a system when the inner circle is rich and powerful and everybody else is poor. And then the second model is distributed model, same as we had Cossacks back in Ukraine. Let's take 17th century. There were magnates equal to oligarchs. There was a king of a sort, and of course there were peasants and tradesmen, but there was a very strong Cossack layer of society. And the right sector and the volunteer corps, they are basically a return to that archetype, to the archetype of freedom of Cossacks. And obviously these system parts are enemies of each other, and situationally they are allies now, repelling the external aggression. But they understand just fine that they never will be able to make peace with each other, and they're waiting for a chance to get back at each other's throat. Video, Nick Feldman. 8, 10, 10, 9, 9, 9, 7. All right, that's the last one. 9. You got 172, you got 175. That's it. You won over a renowned military expert. Thank you. People's Reservist, Part 7. 3rd year, 2016. training center of paratroopers near Zhytomyr. Yeah, we're training paratroopers. Russians have issues understanding our radio communication in Ukrainian. So this is a training center for paratroopers. And in the framework of experimental training program, we're here providing assistance. I'm going where I'm called to, where I'm needed, where people need aid. When they express that they need help, they reach out. Marusia Zverobi, head of the instructor department, Marusini Velmedi, Marusia's Bears, Ukraine military paratroopers. Alexei comes here to train my fighters. So if there are stories coming out asking, what is Arestovich doing with paratroopers? He's not doing anything with paratroopers. He comes here to train because I invited him. Mechanized brigade location near Artemovsk. Of course, it would be great to extend these trainings for a longer time. To the end of war? No, but just to keep it longer. When mobilization occurred, we were just gathered and sent where we need to be at the front. July 2016. So the government collapsed because the city wasn't held, and the city wasn't held because the logistics wasn't good enough. The more we train, the more important it becomes. And people who are trained by People's Reservist program, they value it rather high. And Marusia, who was aiding us here and inviting us here, she actually raised us to the higher level. And see, you can see two different chevrons on me, Bears and People's Reservists. And she created the whole training structure for their paratroopers and invited us to do the training and invited the commanders of paratroopers brigades and the company leaders. And according to their response, and they are very well-prepared soldiers, this is a very valuable course. Their soldiers are getting trained with what we know. And first of all, that increases their chance to survive. Second, they know how to do logistics, and they're great aid to their commanders. And third, they are much more successful at carrying out their military tasks. So our contribution to increasing the preparedness of the paratroopers, of our military forces, we are achieving it here. And, you know, even if the wood is fighting for 2 years, and if you train them for 2 years, even the wood will learn. And our soldiers are much smarter than that. Life is teaching them, because they are being challenged here between life and death. And there are different guys here. There are simple guys and very not simple guys here. And they really appreciate the training we provide. But they also remember that they are defending their country, their fatherland. That's beginning motivation. That's fantastic base. And then the training exercise comes great on top of it. This is a great car. It is superior to what we have otherwise. Great volume, and the armor is good. There are some issues with reliability, and I know there is a second modification that works a bit more reliable, and there are some moments, but it's a good beginning. 2014. Left flank is looking at the left sector, right flank is looking at the right sector, the ones in the back looking at the back. We've been organizing the training of civilians since Maidan. Near Kiev, we had our own training area, also organized ad hoc, and we trained everybody who wished to. Paratroopers training near Zhytomyr. Since 2014, at the end of 2014, I became the commander of battalion of the volunteer corps, and we were training our people who were fighting on the front line. Then I made a decision to stay with military, got acquainted with Maxim Mirgorodsky, who was the battalion commander, call sign Mike. And I was working with him, concentrated on training and our specifics. We need to train better troops than other detachments. And of course, they were fighting so successfully that even the commander of paratroopers recognized us, recognized our effort, and decided to increase the training scope to train other brigades as well. So here at the 199th Training Center of Paratroopers, we are conducting these exercise program with platoons. The instructors that we have here, these are the ones whom I've been working for a while. Some of them were already volunteer instructors for over 2 years with us. And they will stay with us till victory. Some of them signed contracts, some are volunteers. So we're modeling the following situation. The group that was moving on the vehicle approached potentially dangerous segment of the front line that could be mined, that could have landmines installed on the road. So we're not talking about any active attack on you, but you're just getting to a location where landmines can potentially be encountered. So that's what we do. Only one person leaves the vehicle, not the driver. The driver stays with the vehicle. The instructor is a colonel, very experienced one. Everything is moving fine. I would say Marusia's Bayers detachment, they're much better prepared than most of our troops on the front. I first encountered Alexei as an analyst online during the Maidan times, and he was one of those whom you could listen to, because he was definitely helping people around him to see what was going on. And I saw that he is a smart guy who knows what he is talking. Very often he's saying not popular words and rather dangerous words for many in the Ukraine. And I was surprised when one of my groups that was trained near Kiev on our grounds, and they actually asked me to invite Alexei to provide the training. I did not know that he was doing training exercises. I knew him as the analyst. And it was curious for me to get acquainted in person. And he came over, and the guys really, really liked him. I was surprised at the level of his military knowledge and the way he can provide the training. So he has also a very wide spectrum of knowledge. So since then, I definitely am inviting him. He's the lead instructor, the head of the group of instructors that we invite. And I'm comparing, because I have other instructors, I can see how my troops react to one or the other. I can see how they understand, what is the manner of training, how they appreciate the training or not. So I can definitely outline the good ones. And then also when the guys come back from the front line, they come back and say, honestly, what was helpful, what was not helpful. And they actually call me from the front line and provide feedback. What should we lean on harder? Night exercise, work with equipment. You see in the troops of Reserve Corps of Lugansk and Donetsk armies, Russian officers, they're commanding all the way down to the platoon level. And if they go down so low to the level of platoon, then of course they are controlling everything. And on a higher level, and also energy supplies and logistics for that so-called republic. And there are many parts on the front which they would desire to capture, like Avdiivsky complex, which provide components for consumption by those production facilities they already occupied in part of their campaign. For example, without the materials produced by Avdiivsky complex, they cannot really support any metallurgy on the side that they occupied. Not easily. That means to us that they will continue their effort and that we need to continue holding our military in a good state. Our army is smaller, and Russians also invest a lot in propaganda. If they want to mobilize, they can mobilize about 180 battalions, and we can maybe provide 100, 140, which is smaller. 2 years ago, that was just the beginning of it. And they cannot currently change situation there with force that they have. So they understand that they cannot solve this problem militarily with the efforts and the forces they have. They understand that. They're pretty good with planning and analysis. So they're trying to solve the tasks that they can. And on this side of our border, they're basically in the strategic stalemate without a clear path to victory, because we are pressing on them, and they're trying to find a way to change their strategy to hold on what they still hold. So here, that thing, see that protrusion, and then there is a steel wire going here, and it goes over to that limb. Here is the grenade. Grenade explosion is more effective when it is affixed above the ground, on a branch on a tree, than if it is on the surface. So right now there is a ton of these traps. It's basically a landmine war, all modifications. And it's very useful to train our people how to discover them and how to mark them properly to minimize the casualties on our side. We teach people the technical works of landmines, of grenades. This is 100% necessary knowledge, and these deaths from these traps and landmines from the front, sadly as it is, are usually from not knowing the mechanism of grenade, for example. So at first you hear a click when the firing pin hits the ignition, the igniter, and you have 4 seconds to fall on the ground or to hide behind some obstacle. People forget about that, and they waste this time to understand what's going on. And as a result, they don't have enough time to hide from the explosion, and they get a mortal wound. Survival, tactics, this is all absolutely important. Let's talk about survival. If you are in the unknown terrain, you at least would know how to find food, how to hide yourself. You'd know the better positions for shooting, the more advantageous ways to do that. Also, the whole training exercise increases friendship among the troops, and you work with the instructors. You work with people who actually teach you here hands-on, because out in the army training center, you're removed from the coaches and there are not much actual fighting exercise. They maybe teach you how to march, how to walk in formation, and here you actually get it hands-on. And I unfortunately had to march so much to learn that I even was leading our troop here during the oath. That's all I learned there, though. Here you get the real practical training. Each instructor really works with you. We have a very well-oiled training machine here. Basically, all the guys who get here, initially, they don't know much about military practice. And we have about a month and a half to train them from near zero to an advanced level. That takes an effort. My soldiers are not here for politics, not here for the internet slogans and all. And right now they're here training. In a month and a half, they'll be fighting on the front near Avdiivka. I'm trying to be honest with people. If the company leader is an asshole, I'll tell him he's an asshole. If they're great, I'll be first to praise them. And taking commanding position in Ukraine military, that's very unique these times. If you started in these difficult times and you started from basically 5,000 battle-worthy troops and you led it to 250,000, and then you're fighting for 2 years already with a very experienced enemy. Nobody has experience fighting a war like that. So it is unique experience that our military are getting. And in these 2 years of intense fighting, even Tim Burke can learn, and our soldiers are bright enough. So there are a lot of them who are growing, who are taking higher positions in the army as a result. But there are a lot of mistakes too, and mistakes need to be investigated. And I think there are a lot of lessons we can still learn from what's going on. In my experience, people change a lot. In 2 years, they are very different from what we worked with 2 years ago. We are gradually changing from defense position to actually taking back the occupied territories. And one needs to understand that, of course, it has different components, from PSYOP, from information campaign, to the actual first actions on the battlefront and taking those territories that were occupied. It's a slow process of changing from victim who just sits there and catches the shells on their heads to an actual force looking for the enemy and destroying it. And we're showing Russia that their usual politics that was usually starting from success on the front and then affirming them politically, we can symmetrically answer to that. We can also obtain successes on the front. And Russians don't really know how to deal with us. I also hope that NATO summit will show us that the West, collective West, after 2 years of this war, of observing us, would change the vector to actually include us, to integrate Ukraine with the international system of safety here, without de euro integrating into European Union or NATO, but de facto integrating us in. And the third is that in our inner politics, that it's time for different political sides to change their usual ways and make decisions, and there'll be political crisis and new elections where the old elites will crumble and there'll be new people coming to power. It's a long road, but I think we'll see the first positive changes in civic build-up of our country before the end of 2018. Video, Nikolay Feldman. Editing, Anton Dubovik, Vladimir Demchenko. 9/11 production. Brought to you in English by Privateer Station.